Smoeg vir die bad news vir Zuma en sy views van ons op TV moet kyk. Ek wil nie meer hoor hoe ons tieners begrawe oor niemand hul steur aan die wet. Ek wil nie meer lees van affirmative action of beklei om te hou wat ek het. Gee vir my 'n nuwe gein, 'n koers toe plesie en 'n tellery wat liedjies sing en skryf en stry oor die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly.
To Radio Free South Africa. This is your host, Karen Smith. Today we will bring you a very interesting guest from South Africa. But before I bring him on, I would like to give you an update on something that we talked about last week. Our guest was Lee Oxley-Dupree from the South African Family Relief Project, and we spoke about the 480 or more white camps in South Africa, where more than 1 million white South Africans are living in abject poverty and dire circumstances. Well, we also said that these people try to congregate in camps where there is some safety in numbers, and it is way better for them than being out in the veld on their own, because they are definite targets for murderous blacks if they're alone. Yesterday, it was brought home to us really violently that even the camps are not safe places. On the skirts of the Munseyville camp, which we spoke about last week, are 2 black squatter camps. And these people have been protesting for a while about the fact that they do not have electricity and they do not have water. These protests became violent yesterday when the Eskom, the electricity supply people, came in and tried to disconnect the illegal electricity connections that these blacks have put up to their squatter houses. The protests turned violent, and as always in South Africa, it became a black on white protest. The blacks firmly believe that because one house in the white camp has got electricity, there is white privilege happening. So the protest against the government and against the municipality became a protest against the white camp at Munseyville. These people, hundreds of them, whistling, shouting, screaming, turned their attention on the white camp. 3 agencies, Miljoen Stemme for Steve, who you've heard from on this show, the VAS Foundation, and the South African Family Relief Project banded together to try and get the women and children out of the Munseyville camp. The streets were closed off, so they could not get trucks in to get the people out. They appealed on Facebook and other social media for people to come and help them to get these helpless people out of the camp because they were in severe danger. What broke my heart about this entire situation was that social media lit up with adverse comments that these people deserve what they are getting, that these people made their own decision to live in the Munseyville camp, and now they're paying for it. It is a horrific thing for me that in times of great need, the people themselves cannot band together to help those in great danger. There were, however, and fortunately for all of us, there were some heroes who took their cars through this mass of people, and others who parked on the highway, and the children had to be taken in the dark through the bush to the highway where they could get these cars. 4 families opened their homes to the 66 children and the other women that escaped from this camp last night. In the midst of all this chaos, one 18-year-old girl was attacked by the black protesters. She was thrown to the ground, kicked, pummeled, and punched. She has severe facial injuries and spinal injuries. She cannot move her legs or her arms. The ambulance would not come because the ambulance driver was afraid that his ambulance would be set on fire. So they took this girl in an open truck through the bush to the hospital. We all know the state of the hospitals in South Africa. So unless you have medical aid and have money to go to a private hospital, you will not get good treatment. We had people at the hospital at 3 o'clock this morning still waiting for her to get a CAT scan. We have to this moment still not received the results, but this girl is in a critical condition. They have said she almost certainly has brain damage apart from all the spinal damage. There were more protests this morning in South Africa at the camp, but all is now quiet. And we do believe that the families can go back, possibly tomorrow morning, and resume their normal lives. But as you can see, these people are not safe. No matter how many of them band together for safety, any protest or riot in South Africa turns against the whites. It is a very hard and emotional thing for me to report on this. And all I would ask is that you go to the freesouthafrica.com page or the South African Family Relief Project page, and please donate whatever you can afford so that we can get the best medical help possible for this young girl who has already got so many counts against her, so many strikes against her in life. She needs our help, and she deserves some good hospital care. Having said that, our guest today is Carlo Viljoen, who is the West Cape leader and the legal advisor to Front National, a relatively new political party in South Africa. Hello, Carlo.
Good evening, Karen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. Carlo, our international listeners, they don't really know very much about South Africa because as we all know, there's been a total media blackout on South Africa since Nelson Mandela was released from prison and became president. So people were led to believe that the Rainbow Nation is all rainbows and unicorns and everything is fine there and nobody needs to take a second look. So for our listeners, I'd be very glad if you would introduce yourself. Tell us how you became politically active and then tell us how you got involved with Front National.
Sure, Karen. Yes, we all hope to build a rainbow nation in 1994, myself included. My personal experience was that back in 1994, I was young. Me, together with 1 million other men my age and older, all military trained, all well armed, all well organized. We were ready and capable to take up arms to defend our land. However, it was a difficult choice at that time. We all decided to choose peace. We decided not to go and take up arms. We then decided to follow Mr. Mandela and Mr. de Klerk into a new nation where great people can stand together and where we can build a great nation. Because I believe that Afrikaans people have stood up from the ashes before and we've proven ourselves to be great people. And nothing can be taken away from the other people in South Africa as well. However, our Rainbow Nation died with Mr. Mandela, left the door when Mr. Mandela retired from politics. And our nation has changed drastically in the past 10 years. For instance, this Manziville incident that you're talking about, I've been searching our local South African media continuously for the past 24 hours. Not one media house has mentioned this in the media. It's shocking. However, they will mention things like, for instance, a white person getting cross at one of our local shopping centers because a black person just stepped in front of him in the queue, and he said, please don't do that, wait behind me in the queue. And this has made news.
Absolutely. We will get into shortly. We will get into the things that have made the news, because it is absolutely shocking. I've also been watching the media, and there is not one word about this. Not one single word about this heroic rescue of over 300 people by a handful of people last night to keep them safe. And you would think that the media would be jumping on this.
I did find one media report, but it's totally skewed. The media report says that people in Muncie, well, black people, protesting because their lights has been cut off, when in fact the true situation is that their illegal connections has been cut off, and the electricity has been cut off because they haven't paid for months, and they are thousands of rands in arrears, which is quite legitimate, and a reasonable person should expect to have your service cut off if you don't pay for it. So just to give you an example of how biased the media is in South Africa today.
No, absolutely. Carlo, we know this. We know this, but the world doesn't know it because nobody speaks about it. And if we did not have social media at our disposal, those people would have been left last night. They would have been left because nobody would have known and nobody would have said anything about it. I believe at one stage, the police just turned their back on the white camp and walked away. And it was an absolute miracle that in the middle of all that chaos and all the screaming and protesting and whistles blowing, etc., that some people heard that girl screams for help. It is an absolute miracle.
Yeah, that's true. And Karen, I'm not even angry about this anymore. I'm beyond anger. I'm beyond shock. I'm now at the stage where I decided to do something, and that's how I got into politics, and how I got involved with Front National, because being angry and talking about it is not going to change anything. The Rainbow Nation is dead. My people is being marginalized, raped, murdered, and robbed every single day. There's no report of this whatsoever in any media in South Africa. In fact, if you complain about it, you're being called out as a racist and anti-ANC person. So I'm afraid we'll have to start drawing the line somewhere, and I've decided I've drawn the line, and I'm going to do whatever I can to save my people.
I agree with you, because some years back, the Minister of Police was in Parliament, and he said himself that if you do not like the crime, then leave, go somewhere else. And that for me was horrific, that instead of saying, well, we are going to take stern measures against the crime, against the farm murders, against the murders of civilians, he just said, don't whine about it, leave. So if that is the kind of backup from the police services that you have in South Africa, yeah, there is no hope for the country. As you say, the Rainbow Nation is dead. And it's dead for blacks and whites alike. There is no hope for anybody in South Africa unless we all join hands together, stand up, and do something. And so you decided that this is where you draw the line and you're going to now do something. So what did you decide to do?
Karen, just to give you another example, sorry, before I go answer your question. In December, I noticed from personal experience, because I used to serve in the police force in Durban, where I was in charge of the Durban beachfront. So I know what happens on the Durban beachfront during December. Um, During December, we had an incident where a lady called Penny Sparrow attempted to go to the beach. What she found there was 1.5 million people on the beachfront. Um, they were having sex anywhere. They were defecating on the street. They were simply destroying everything. There were no shops open, so nobody benefited from this. She then went home and she complained on the internet saying that there's chaos, there's no law and order, and she used a word that was found offensive, and she was ripped to pieces, and she's still being haunted today by this. However, remember, this is just one white lady actually complaining about lawlessness. That's all it comes down to. However, on that very same day that she complained, our minister of national intelligence, in his motorcade, drove on both sides of the vehicles, on both sides of the roads with his vehicles. They crashed into an innocent white person, following the law, waiting for his turn to turn right into the road. They killed this man. This minister got out of his car, got into another vehicle, and drove off. They didn't even bother to call for help. They didn't even ask this man if he's okay. He died alone next to the road in his car, while the minister got into another vehicle and simply drove away. That minister is still active. He's still leading this country. Nothing, absolutely nothing has happened to him. Just to give you a comparison of how things are working today in South Africa.
Oh no, absolutely. Because at the same time, that Penny Sparrow thing. Uh, by the way, for our listeners who are not who don't know the story, she said that the blacks behave like monkeys on the beach.
Yes.
That was the racist, horrific, terrible white supremacist comment that she made. So she lost her job. She is being taken to criminal court by the ANC themselves. And shortly after that, a well-known radio personality said that the reason they're picking on Penny Sparrow is because people do not understand the right to free speech.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that man was to be an idols judge in South Africa, which is a very prestigious thing to be. And he was taken to court and he was fired from the idols position. They have now been told to take him back. But all he said was, people do not understand the concept of freedom of speech. And
that is basically what's happening to every white person in South Africa. Whenever you point out something to be wrong, whenever you point out something that is not working, you're immediately labeled as a racist and attacked, and you either lose your work or whatever other situation you're in gets removed from you. It's simply the racist attack has become a weapon to keep white people quiet, and it cannot continue any longer. We have to put a stop to it.
Absolutely. Carlo, I just want to read a piece that was written by Daniel Lotter, who is what is his position at Front National?
He's our intelligence officer for the Front National.
All right. I would like to read a piece that he wrote this week because it will explain a lot of what we are going to talk about. It is called The Winds of Havoc. There's apparently no end to the destructiveness of what is now termed the decolonization of South Africa. It has reached the lowest point of human existence, that point where the ability to create and cultivate is also destroyed and replaced with a mere instinct-driven survival existence. I have no words to describe the measure of, he said, despise that one feels for the creatures who would go to an institution of learning and cultivation, such as the University of Cape Town, carry out priceless works of art from a collection and burn it. The ashes of civilization, cultivation, of culture itself scattered by the winds of havoc. The irony in it all is that the site of this senseless destruction is the very viper's nest of liberal upheaval, where over the years the seeds of discord were sown against all that was built over 350 years. The first to burn is the very bridge that was built to cross the barrier between civilized Western values, progressive existence, and the time of the winds of havoc. A week or so ago, I took some visitors to the Huguenot Monument in Franschhoek. We were standing there, almost piously impressed by the weight of the heritage brought to this country by these people. And then someone made a comment which was so true. One could almost understand how the people who are so driven by hatred and fear to destroy all remnants of Western civilization must feel when he sees all the evidence of achievement and advancement, because he has nothing to compare it to. And that is the essence of it. The destructive force of African might blowing the winds of havoc through the University of Cape Town, and from there all over the city, the province, the country, and the continent, is trying to destroy the evidence of what they cannot compete with. But time itself works differently. History itself can never be destroyed. However much you take down the statue of Cecil John Rhodes, or set fire to the statue of Jan Smuts, or blow the winds of havoc where you go, what has been, has been. What has been confirmed is the fact that the multicultural state of unity, the rainbow nation of de Klerk and Mbeki and Zuma and Zilla and Maimani, is falling apart. The visual symbols of the minority color in the rainbow is a threat to the majority color in the rainbow. The entire edifice is crumbling because it exists of fundamentally irreconcilable cultures and customs. We might be accused of racism when we predict the final fate of the multicultural South Africa. We pay no attention to that accusation. We know that we will no longer be part of it, not because we don't want to be, but because we can't be. It makes one sad to see that all the opportunities have been given to gain education, to become free and independent and responsible citizens of the modern world. They've been wasted. After 22 years of having power, progress exists only in liberal imagination. It has come to the burning of priceless works of art. It makes one even more sad to hear some of our own people say, let them take down Rhodes and let them burn Jan Smuts. They were imperialists and liberals themselves. How short-sighted of such people to live with their faces turned towards the past. It is the future we can change, not the past. It is the future that we are concerned about, not the past. And in tolerating this behavior because of our own narrow conviction, we lower ourselves to the same level as the ones we despise. For we know that it will not end with statues of Rhodes and Smuts and paintings and works of art. After this, it will be the statues of Kruger and van Riebeeck and priceless architectural heritage and beautiful buildings. And eventually, also the people who live and work and create inside of those. But what makes one the saddest of all is that there are still people who believe that all this is just teething problems and that the way of the ANC and the EFF and the DA is the right way, the way that will lead to solutions for problems to which no answer could be found in 350 years. This belief comes from a stubborn refusal to admit to themselves and to each other that they have been cheated. It is difficult for them to admit that they might have made a judgment of error, which is a very human thing to do. And what is so endlessly sad about it is the fact that we cannot go back to the drawing board and redesign the future before we cannot admit that the current is failing because of our own lack of insight. Until that happens, the winds of havoc will blow away one thing after the other, and the time will come when we will seek for shelter. But there will only be ashes scattered in the winds, and the voices of the ancestors and the future generations asking us, what have you done? Those words, Carlo, those words struck me to the heart.
Yes.
That they are so, that is the white situation in South Africa right now. They are destroying everything we have built up, and the next thing to be destroyed is us.
Exactly. And you cannot be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to be in a relationship with you. Um, we have really bent over backwards. We have been walking on eggs. We have apologized. We went down on our knees and we washed feet. We kissed butt. We allowed them to take our work. We allowed them partnership into our business. We allowed them to scream at us and be angry for us. But how long must it go on for? How long does it take you to forgive somebody? It's been 22 years. If after 22 years with affirmative action, a BEE, which is Black Economic Empowerment, thousands of free handout programs, you still can't take care of yourself, how long will it take? Will you ever be able to stand on your own feet if after 22 years with all doors open to you, with all money's thrown at you, and you still can't sustain yourself? When will it happen? Can it happen? Um, in the meanwhile, millions of white South Africans has, like you rightly put, gone into absolute poverty. They are living in squatter camps because they can't find work. They can't start a business. In any case, if you want to start a business, if you want any reasonable contracts with the government or any big other firm, you have to prove that you've got a black partner, or and it's simply impossible to take somebody on board, a new company who's only going to be there as a parasite and who won't contribute any skills or any money or any labor. You simply can't do it. It's totally destructive. Yeah, so we've come to a point where we're going to have to take action, not only for our own benefits as white South Africans, but to the benefit of the rest of South Africa, even though they don't realize it. Maybe like a parent picking up a child and bringing him in from the rain if he doesn't want to do it himself.
Yes, I agree with you totally, because we gave them a country that may not have been we may not have been as financially secure because of all the things we had gone through, including sanctions, etc., against us. So the financial situation of the country may not have been that great, but it was a positive, fabulous, beautiful first world country when they took it over in 1994. And if you look at it today, you would believe that it was a banana republic and had never reached the heights that it was.
Sorry to interrupt, Karen, on that point. I've often said it's only in South Africa where you will find that our country that had no credit, I think we had something like 300 billion rand in the plus, where the ANC and Mr. Trevor Manuel took it down to 500 billion, where we owed. And then you get praised for something like that.
Yes.
It's insane. Yes. And then if you say it's insane, you get labeled as a racist, because you point out the obvious and the correct situation. It's insane. No reasonable person can live like this.
No. And you know, what my feeling is that nobody can fault the whites in South Africa. We stood up in vast numbers. A huge amount of people went to vote on the referendum. I think it was over 85% of the voting population actually turned out to vote. And and of that, more than 67% voted yes, we should continue to negotiate with the ANC. So it is not because the whites were not willing to embrace this change and to make it work.
Exactly. I myself, like I said, me and a million other males armed and ready to fight, made the choice to give peace a chance. It wasn't out of fear because in my entire life I haven't seen or heard that we as whites lost any battle against the ANC, not once, not even a minor skirmish. It's not out of fear that we decided to give peace a chance. It's because we wanted to build a great nation. So, yeah, that's also a misconception that's been thrown in the media.
Yes, but it would not appear that the same goodwill was coming from the other side.
Um, I must be honest, Mr. Mandela, I feel had serious and honest intention to unite us, and he worked very hard at it. At that stage, he introduced affirmative action, which at that stage may have been fair, but to run affirmative action, take all the white people's work for more than 10 years, it's unreasonable. But like I said, that notion died with Mr. Mandela, and the new notion is that the whites are to be blamed for everything, that we've stolen everything, that we are here to exploit the blacks. Even though we don't have work anymore, even though we don't have companies anymore, we still get seen as exploiting them.
Well, absolutely. And you know, for me, what happened last night is a perfect illustration of that. Because the RDP housing, which is low cost black economic housing built by the government, across the road from the white camp in Munseyville, they have solar panels, they have indoor plumbing, they have electricity. They have cars parked in their garages. They were given absolutely everything. While the government gave the whites in Munseyville corrugated iron huts with no floors, no foundations, no windows. Right. And as if that were not bad enough, one house in Munseyville has legal electricity. And for that reason, the blacks turned on them last night. Now, to me, it's an impossible situation. They still think that these whites who are living on charity and who know that the government can come and throw them off of Munseyville tomorrow if they want to, because the government made it very clear that this was temporary housing. So they could be thrown away tomorrow, but they've put in neat lawns, they've put in flowers, they are doing the best they can under terrible circumstances. And still the blacks turn against them and say they've got white privilege. How is this possible?
Karen, it's the political game that the ANC is playing to survive. They know that they haven't done what they should do as a government. There's a few that benefits from being the ANC being in charge. They taking care of all their friends and their family, and the rest of the country is being neglected. There's no service delivery. Nothing comes down to the man on the street. Now, the only way the ANC can stay in power is to point the finger at somebody else for their incompetence, and the whites is an easy target, the easy scapegoat. We have lost all our voices. We can't represent ourselves in government anymore. We don't have financial power anymore. So it's easy to blame us. And unfortunately, the masses out there wants a scapegoat, and it's an easy road to make us the target of their anger instead of the real enemy, which is the ANC, which is actually stealing from the people that's voting for them.
No, absolutely. And that leads me right back to where we were at the start of the show. So why was there a need for Front National, and why was it formed?
Front National is a newly registered political party. Our main goal is self-determination for the Afrikaans people, or if I can call it, white people of South Africa. Basically, in simple terms, is if you had a party and this party is too rough for you, then you've got a right to leave. And that's what we're saying. All other nations in the world has got the right to have their voice, has got a right to vote who they want them to represent them. They have a right to self-determination, and that's all we're asking. We're not saying we're better than anybody else or that we want to rule over anybody else. We're just saying South Africa is not going the way that we believe it should. We are Christian people. We are capitalists. We have our own traditions. We have our own values, and none of these things are being shared by the ANC. The following is more towards China and Russia. That is not the route we want to follow. The ANC has made itself a clear and obvious enemy of Israel. That's not the route we want to follow. The ANC has brought in spiritual some gomas. I don't know if your audience will understand that. That's forefather witch doctors into parliament. We can't serve in a parliament where things like that is happening. The ANC is advocating for communism. It's obviously been proven that those things don't work. So what we're saying is, this is not a party that we want to share in anymore. Just let our people go. We'll go and we'll do our own thing. We'll share our own values. We want to vote for the people that speaks for us, and we want to govern ourselves. It's not unreasonable. It's a worldwide right that every other nation in the world has.
And were you not guaranteed that right? If not in the Constitution, but definitely in the CODESA agreement, you were guaranteed that right, were you not?
You know what is so interesting about this? Maybe just to take you back in history. Our Boer War against the English, who also oppressed us in 1890, one of our generals, the General Jan Smuts, also became a general in the Second World War. And he was one of the founder members of the United Nations Charter, who actually wrote in there that every nation in this world's got a right to self-determination. That's just background history. Yes, and our agreement with the ANC, and it's written into our constitution under section 235, gives us a right to self-determination. And I've decided that we have that right internationally and locally, and that we're going to stand on that right.
I read, I think it was in about 2013, I may be wrong on the date, there were representations made to Parliament on behalf of self-determination for white South Africans, and they agreed that it would be taken under consideration. But from that date forward, I have not seen another word from anybody that they are actually considering it seriously, or are forming a committee to consider it, or have done anything with it.
Karen, that's exactly why I got involved in politics. I must firstly state, I'm a God-fearing man. I'm a peaceful family man. I actually don't like politics. I'm a litigator, and I used to be in the police force. So I'm not a very experienced politician, but the fact is that my people are being oppressed, they're being murdered and killed, and I can no longer sit still. I've decided to take the legal route instead of the illegal route at this stage. Sorry, I missed your question. I forgot it for a second.
I was saying about
Oh, yes, the government. Yes, we then laid, that was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in 2013 years, demand was given to the government to at least initiate this process. However, there was no response from them whatsoever. Then it went as far as Front National getting an interdict, a High Court interdict against the government to actually talk to them. Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, who's our deputy president, I think they had a meeting with them in 2014, and since then nothing has happened. So it's obvious that this government is not going to entertain us or talk to us in this regard.
What?
Even after they've been forced by a court order to do so.
Well, they don't. They've given absolute proof that they don't care about court orders. They don't care what the courts have to say, because if you just look at the Bashir al-Assad thing, if you look at the Malema thing, if you look at the Human Rights Council telling them not to kill the Boer anymore, if you look at the cases against Mr. Zuma, where the public protector found that he must pay back the money for Nkandla, if you look at any of those things, you will see that they couldn't give two hoots about about anything that the court has to say.
Karen, I'll give you my personal experience, and this is the reason why I resigned from the police force. I was in charge of the disciplinary unit who used to detect and prosecute corrupt policemen. At this stage, the police force has probably spent about R1 million on my education and skills development, just as background. Then shortly after, in 1994, a new police chief were appointed because he was a friend of somebody in politics. He had no knowledge or skills in management. And then shortly after that, he appointed one of his sons as a policeman. Obviously, this man didn't have the maturity, so he found himself very soon he found himself being in corrupt practices. I then started to prosecute him. I was called in by the police chief and said, "Hey, please don't prosecute my son." My response was, "This is an independent process. Don't interfere. If you interfere, I will prosecute you as well." The very next day, my entire unit was closed down and I was put in another unit where I was supposed to deal with vagrants after they spent over R1 million on my education. So I decided that law and order doesn't prevail in South Africa anymore. I then decided to resign from the police. That was one of my personal experiences with the government simply ignoring our law.
Oh, absolutely. It does not apply to them, their buddies, their cadres, the ANC freedom fighters, any of those that are in power and getting rich off of the absolute poverty and distress of an entire nation, black and white alike. The law does not apply to them at all. But it's frightening.
It's so frightening, Karen, and what I don't understand is that there seems to be no end to their greed. I'll understand that I'm what we can call a new money, that I'll also be a bit greedy, but really there needs to be some kind of end. I don't know how many hits our country can still take. I don't know how much damage our country can still withstand before it totally collapses. They just don't seem to have any end, and there's no stops that's stopping them whatsoever.
But they also, and I spoke about this on a show last week, it is an unfortunate thing that black people do not seem to have any grasp of cause and effect. They don't realize that what they are doing today is going to affect the country for the next 100 years. And they just don't seem to have a grasp and an understanding of that.
Exactly. And this is the exact politics that the ANC is playing. The situation in reality is that the white person is the person with the skill and ability to create jobs, to produce resources, to put in our economy, to run companies. However, they're not allowed to do this. So, of course, this has got a knock-on effect that it affects people that can be employed and that resources can be done and money be put into the economy. But the ANC doesn't see this. They only see that they want to score votes by BEE and affirmative action and policies like that.
Yes, but
And by the way, sorry, I've checked the other day, and I don't know if you realize it, but today there's about as much laws against white persons in South Africa as there has been laws against in apartheid against black people. So it's basically nothing different than what it was in apartheid, except now it's against the white people.
well, I saw the other day that we've been talking about 119 race-based laws, but I saw a new estimate of that the other day. It's up to 141 at the moment, but nobody really knows, because in every piece of law that is passed, and I've looked at a couple of them, there's some race-based thing somewhere in it. So, the numbers that we throw out there are necessarily incorrect until somebody goes back to 1994 and goes through every single law that has been passed and makes a list of them. We will never know how many there really are. But, what country in the world has got this many laws against such a small minority of people? What threat do 3.5 million people pose to the 70 million population of South Africa?
In fact, Karen, we're only 8% of the population, and throughout the ages, we are the people that's been carrying this entire country, and now to kill the goose that's laying the golden egg, it's insanity. We actually, as white people, just want to contribute. We just want to feed our family. We just want to live in peace. However, it has become impossible. If you take a man's livelihood away from him, if you threaten him around every corner, and you take his land and you give it to somebody who's going to destroy it, what do you expect is going to happen?
Well, I think they think, if they think at all about the end result, which I doubt that any of them have ever really thought about what the end result of this is going to be, because again, we have the cause and effect. They don't see it. But the minute white population is still over 80% of the tax base in South Africa. And that leads me to another question. Why would the ANC let you have self-determination when they know that 80% or more of their tax base is going to disappear with you?
That's the problem. The ANC knows that they're feeding off us. They're parasites. There's no other way to put it. They're parasites that's feeding off us, not only for their financial support, and they know if we're not part of this country, the entire financial income is going to collapse. But on the other hand, they're playing a very dangerous game of making us the perpetrators of everything that's wrong in South Africa. And they don't realize that this is also coming back to bite them. So they're trying to play two opposing games here, all for their own benefit. It's extremely dangerous, and they've created this danger.
Absolutely. We've got about 5 minutes before we come up to an ad break. And if you are able to, I'd like you to just talk about the disaster caused by the 3 finance ministers in 1 week.
Yeah, definitely, we can do that.
Because there was no reason to dismiss our finance minister, except that he was standing up against the things that Zuma wanted for himself. He wanted some new aeroplanes, and he wanted, and this guy stood up against him. And all hell broke loose, and South Africa's credit rating went down the drain.
And on that point, why would Zuma, and I say Zuma with great disrespect, why would Zuma need a new plane if his term ends in 2 years? He's only got 2 terms in terms of our constitution. To me, my interpretation is all the things that he's been doing lately is a clear sign that he's got intention to become a dictator, because the moment he disregards our constitution and becomes runs for a third term, he's in direct violation of our constitution.
Absolutely, but he doesn't care one single scrap about the Constitution. Not one bit, only when it suits his purposes.
Exactly.
But other than that, he doesn't care. So because of that, I believe, and I've only read it because I don't know, I'm not there, but I believe that South Africa lost over 190 billion because of that little one escapade of President Zuma's, of firing the finance minister, putting in somebody with absolutely no experience, whose only claim to fame was his association with the Guptas, and then under pressure firing him and putting in a previous finance minister. I mean, in 1 week, what absolute garbage is that way to rule a country?
That's been Zuma's modus operandi. In every State Department, whoever doesn't follow his instruction or plays to his tune, you'll get dismissed immediately. And somebody, no matter what his skills or competencies, as long as you in Zuma's camp, you will replace that person so that Zuma can get his way. All clear signs of a dictator.
Absolutely. And what worries me is if we look at Robert Mugabe, who is the most visible dictator nowadays in proximity to South Africa. If you look at him and what has become of his country, South Africa is fast on the way to become that.
Definitely. I have seen the signs for quite some time now, especially the way Zuma has placed people in all key positions that will serve him, no matter what their skills is, no matter what he does, they will serve him blindly. And my interpretation is that he's got no intention to stand down after his term ends, his second term ends now.
No, I don't believe that he has, but I do believe that as much as the white population is in danger from Julius Malema, I do believe that Mr. Zuma himself is in danger from that young man, because he was instrumental in asking Mbeki and putting Zuma in power. Now he can just as easily do that against Zuma, and he is getting himself, by flitting around the world and going to places like Oxford and getting standing ovations there for his communist ideas, he is placing himself in a position of power in order to oust Zuma, and I can see that as a possibility.
Yes, I've been saying for a long time, I don't understand why any reasonable, sane person will vote for Zuma, because it doesn't make sense. The average person on the street doesn't get any advantage from Zuma. The only person that gets advantage is Zuma, his 20 wives, or however many that are by now, and his friends. So I think the more
Be back in about 4 minutes. You're listening to Radio Free South Africa on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. This is your host, Karen Smith. And our guest today is Carlo Viljoen, the West Cape leader and legal advisor to Front National, a fledgling white political party in South Africa. Before the break, Carlo, we were talking about Malema and how a vote for Zuma is actually a vote only for his friends and himself to get rich. But a vote for Malema, you were going to expand onto that. How would that make any difference, really?
To the black voters, that hasn't benefited from Zuma's corrupt government, it's a new opportunity to get into easy money, into get something for nothing. That's the politics that Malema is playing. It's easy politics, it's popular politics, and it falls easier on the ear of the thoughtless masses. Um, he's basically saying the whites stole everything they've got. They stole the land they're working. They stole the jobs they have. They stole the money that you have. They keeping the money for themselves. And if you vote for me, we'll take all that from them by force and we'll give it to you, and you'll live happily ever after. That's the politics he's playing. It's easy to play it, and there's a lot of people hungry to hear that, unfortunately, and it's dangerous.
Absolutely, because once again, we come to cause and effect, because it would appear to me that the Black people do not understand that once they've taken your job, your house, your bank account, your land, your farm, it requires maintenance. You need to work to maintain those things, which they
I'm
don't.
laughing, Darren, because I'll give you a good example. My brother, he's renting a farm now for 200 Rand a month. It's a 2,000 hectare farm that used to generate at least R1 million in resources. It used to uh, create work for at least 300 people. Today, that farm is empty, it's abandoned, and he's renting that farm for 500 Rand from one of these beneficiaries of the land restoration. So imagine the loss of revenue, the loss of jobs that was done by this destructive policy.
Right. So now that leads me into another Front National initiative, because although the land claim thing was closed in about 1998, if I've got that year correct, Zuma decided to reopen it a little while ago for those that hadn't benefited by it. Now we are thousands of land claims behind, which have not been processed or dealt with. So those farmers are sitting on their land, knowing that tomorrow it can be handed over to blacks. So what incentive do they have to improve, to farm properly, to do anything on their land, because tomorrow it's gone? And they know just as clearly as you and I do that the money that they've been promised for that land is probably not forthcoming. So given that situation, he now opens the land claims one more time for those previously disadvantaged who somehow just didn't have a chance to put their claims in. So now they put a claim on the entire Pretoria. And so Front National said, okay, we will have a look at this and we will also put land claims in. Do you have information on that?
I'm not 100% in the loop of that, Karen, but it's a fact that we as Afrikaans people bought land from the indigenous people, or we occupied land that was unoccupied in several different parts all over South Africa in the early years between the 1700s and the 1800s. And one piece of land called Stella land it's a land on the border of Botswana and South Africa, which which is a piece of land that we actually created a republic in the 1800s that was incorporated into South Africa sometime later, I think in the 1913s.
Yeah.
And we've put in a land claim for that entire piece of land there, which was previously a Afrikaner republic.
And do you see any signs of it ever being?
Nothing else in South Africa, nothing has happened.
Yes, and then they will use a very plausible excuse that there are thousands of land claims waiting to be seen to, so yours has to fall in line. Meanwhile, the claims are just going on. So apart from the farm murders, and apart from the farms already taken away and turned into desolation, desert spots by land claims, we now have farmers who are not motivated to do anything more on their farms because they will be taken tomorrow. Now, at the same time, you have this desperate drought in South Africa. where the farmers are begging for help for their animals, and the government is saying, well, we'll help black farmers, but you must learn to farm a different way. So where is the incentive to grow food for the burgeoning, hugely increasing population of South Africa?
It's another danger that the government is creating, simply to win votes. They are promising these people that they can get land for free. They are convincing these people that the land was stolen from them, which is in fact not so, because all land owned by any white person, that person can prove to you that he's bought it and it's registered with the proper deeds office. Now, you stated the facts correctly. And I know many farmers who doesn't want to sow, who doesn't want to plant, who doesn't want to buy anything new or create further jobs, because their future is in danger. They don't want to invest money in something that they might not have tomorrow. And there's quite a big chance that the ANC government won't be in government any much longer. And then the new policy, or either to stay longer in government, the ANC will have to up their game with the land restoration claim and be even more aggressive in claiming land and giving it to the blacks. So either way, looking at it, the onslaught against white landowners is going to become worse.
And then we need to address the new laws, where it is not just your farm anymore. It is any piece of land.
Exactly.
Any piece of land, that's commercial, residential, it doesn't matter. If the municipality decides that they want that piece of land, they don't even have to give you a real reason. They just have to say, you must get out on such and such a date. End of story.
Exactly. And where does it leave people who wants to invest in buying a property, a man who wants to buy a home for his family? You're certainly not going to put the money down and create more money flow into the economy, because he might lose his property at any time. It's extremely dangerous, this political, it's easy politics, but it's very dangerous.
Yes, and then we need to get to some of the other laws that they are in the process of or thinking about passing. Because Malema wants businesses to give 52% of their business to their workers. Now, Zuma has been saying the same thing for a very long time, that farmers must give 51% of their farms to their workers, and companies must give 50% of their business to their workers. Now, it's not good enough to have a black partner who owns 51%, as you said earlier. And now you have to give it to your workers combined. What incentive does any international company have to invest where their land does not belong to them, their building does not belong to them, and 52% of their company does not belong to them?
It's insane, Karen, to say the least. Natural law or human nature is that some people can lead, some people can think, some people can carry, other people can dig holes. And we made this way. Let's put color aside. If I'm talented and if I can manage a company, let me manage it. If you can stick things together, then take up that function and do it. Then we all happy. That's how we made. That's how the world works.
Yes.
You can't force a person that's not skilled into a position that is not capable of handling. It's destructive. It's dangerous. It's destroying everything that we know.
Absolutely. But it seems to me that the political environment in South Africa is such that, oh, well, if it's not working, we'll just pass more laws to make it work even worse.
Exactly. It's natural human nature would have kicked in after 22 years of all these opportunities that has been given to black people. If you haven't benefited after 22 years of free handouts, uh, with every door open to you, money thrown at you, then you will not benefit in 1,000 years. And to make more laws to try and create this artificial situation to put a person in a place where he doesn't belong will not work, even if these laws are made for the next 1,000 years.
Exactly, exactly. So it would appear that at this moment in time, the future for all South Africans is extremely bleak. Now,
We have no future, Karen. There is no future. Um, my personal situation, let me put it to you this way. I've got 2 degrees. I've got 20 certificates, and I'm well qualified. I've stopped applying to work after my 1,000th. I'm not lying to you, and I can prove every single application, 1,000 job application. The writing is on the wall. I will never be employed.
mm,
Now, I'm fortunate in a way that I've studied in a way, I saw this coming, and I studied the way that I'm not dependent on any other person. But all the plumbers, all the electricians, all the other types of uh, um, skills out there is dependent on people employing them. And they can't find work, not because they're not skilled or experienced, it's because they're white.
yeah.
Now, God, the way I've been making a living is by suing the government. I'm fortunate in that way. Like you said with the hospitals, to me, um, what's going on in the state hospitals is beyond negligence.
Oh,
It's actually intent. I've got claims against the government worth 500 million rand for medical negligence against white people that I've running with at the moment. So I've grown from experience and from what I've seen with my own eyes to believe this is not just something that I sucked out of my thumb. That if you go to a state hospital, you're going there to get murdered or seriously mistreated.
oh, absolutely.
That's the white person.
Absolutely. And yet, because of the race-based laws, white people have very little chance of having medical aid. So they cannot go to private hospitals, and they have to put their lives in the hands of these people who we have Cuban doctors running brothels out of hospitals. We have abuse of the elderly in hospitals. We have nurses who are now going on strike because they don't want to wear white uniforms because that's racist. I mean,
Yeah, can you believe it? It's insane. I can't believe I'm part of this insanity. It feels like I'm in a horror movie.
the problem is, Carlo, that the rest of the world looks at what we are saying and says, garbage. You cannot be telling the truth. No country can be such a circus.
I think that my opinion is the rest of the world feels that we victimized blacks because of apartheid, and this is our
Payback.
deserved punishment.
Yeah.
However, the rest of the world doesn't realize that the apartheid only lasted for 44 years. The first apartheid law was passed in 1950, and apartheid came to an end in 1994. So it's 44 years. And the true facts of apartheid is that blacks were each given their own homeland where they could govern themselves. This is exactly what we're asking for us now. Give us our own land so we can govern ourselves. They were given their homelands, and then they were also given opportunity, subject to our laws, to come and join us in our government. So, and another fact is that more white people has died because of the new South Africa being brutally murdered. And I'm saying brutal, it's not your everyday murder. Like I said, I'm an advocate, I'm a litigator in court every day. It's not the average run-of-the-mill, everyday stab you twice murder. It's brutal the way white people are getting murdered. And the numbers far exceeds the people that has been killed by the apartheid government. So we've paid our dues. It's been 22 years. How long must we still ask for forgiveness? We've asked for forgiveness. We've decided to walk the peace. We've decided to give them work and money and cars and free handouts. How long must it still go on for?
Well, it can't, because as I see it, there are two possible ways for the whites in South Africa. One is that Malema takes over and wipes you all out, and we'll wake up one morning and say, wow, where did the whites in South Africa go?
That's the problem, Karen, that the blacks has been put under the misconception that we are easy targets.
Yes.
Which we peaceful, peace-loving people, we law-abiding people, and this is the reason why we've been easy targets up to date. However, many of us has decided now enough is enough. We can't see our people being slaughtered like this. So they've been brought under the misconception that they won or we ended apartheid due to some victory that they had, which they actually didn't have on the battlefield.
Yes.
And secondly, that we done it out of fear. And they've brought under the misconception that we are going to be easy targets. Britain, with all its might, also discovered that we're not easy targets as well as many other people. And that we mustn't, this fear that we have, or this love for peace that we have, this willingness to abide by the law that we have, and the willingness to follow correct procedure must not be seen as a weakness, and we mustn't be seen as easy targets, because I can guarantee you we are not.
No, but nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to see a civil uprising in South Africa.
Exactly. We want to take care of our family. We God-fearing people. We just want to have our family, take care of our family. We don't want to interrupt with somebody. We don't want to rule anybody else. But why come and take our houses? Why come and murder and rape our wives? What will any other normal person do? We definitely don't want civil war. It's destructive. Nobody can win. Even if you win the war, you don't win.
No.
So we're saying it seems that we can't party with you any longer, but also you don't want to live in peace with us. So let us go. Let us leave this party in peace, and you can carry on. We'll start by ourselves again.
How many times in the history of South Africa have the white population, and I include us all there, it is not only the Afrikaner or the Boer or whatever you want to call them who has a history in South Africa. Yes, we did have the Anglo-Boer War, where we had incredible cruelty inflicted on the Afrikaners by the English. But that does not mean that English people have no part in the forming of South Africa, in the making it the success it was in 1994. So I lump us all together. There are so few whites in South Africa. We have to stand together, and we have to forget about who's a Boer, who's an Afrikaner, and who's a Donner Engelsman. You know, we have to just forget about that and stand up together, because we are a minute minority. And if we don't stand together, there's no hope for us. So
no, definitely, I agree with you. There's no distinction in my mind anyway between who's Afrikaans and who's English. There might still be people thinking like that, but really, Afrikaans people don't really discriminate against other people. We've got our own culture, we've got our own religion, just like any other person in the world wants to be part of his family, wants to be part of his church of his choice, wants to be part of the club of his choice. Why is it so different if we want to have that, what the rest of the world is enjoying?
I'm certainly not arguing that point. All I'm saying is that we don't have enough numbers as it is to have a loud voice. So if we discriminate amongst ourselves about who's English and who's Afrikaans and who doesn't like what, we are never going to achieve our ends. We have to stand together because, as you say, we are less than 8% of the population. And if we break that up into separate little tribes, well, we're done for. We are totally done for. We need to stand together. And for me, that is one of the most important things that the South African whites have to learn, is that no matter how much animosity there is because of past events, we say that the ANC must get over themselves. It's been 21 years now of the Rainbow Nation. They must forget about apartheid and look forwards. Well, we need to forget about the Anglo-Boer War, not forget about it. It's part of our history, but we need to move forward from there now. Instead of hanging on to this, well, I don't like the Afrikaners and I don't like the English. We have to move past that. We have to, or we will not survive.
You know, my experience, I agree with you 100%. We have, as Afrikaners, as long time ago, forgiven the English for the concentration camps where they murdered thousands of our women and children.
Oh, absolutely.
We've passed that and we've moved on and we've included them in everything and every aspect of our lives. So if we could do it, why can't the ANC do it? And it's not like we've been that brutal to them like we've been treated. But my experience is that English people think that they might escape being victimized if they distance themselves from Afrikaans people by saying, oh, we don't like Afrikaans people. But what they don't realize is that they only seen as white, whether the English, French, American.
There you go.
That's something they haven't realized yet. But like I say, most Afrikaans people has long forgotten about who's English and who's Afrikaans. There's some people that use that as a weapon to try and escape the victimization of the current government, but soon they'll realize that that's not really a weapon they can use.
Absolutely, because, you know, when those 6 guys attack your house with AK-47s, they are not going to ask you, what language do you speak? They are not going to ask you, were you pro or anti-apartheid? They are not going to ask you any questions.
Exactly.
You know, you're white, and that's more than enough for them. They don't care about anything else. They don't care that you run a black creche and take care of black children all day. They're not interested in that.
The horrible things that I've seen as a litigator of people who contributed their entire lives, nuns, to uplift the black people, and to see the photos, how they've been subjected to brutal manipulation and rape and murder. It goes beyond understanding. I don't understand how a person can have so much hate and so much anger that you can do that to somebody who's trying to help you. It's beyond my understanding.
Carlo, throughout history, those are the first people they turn on, are the people who are actually helping them. Those are the people they attack first, because they see you as weak. The fact that you are helping them makes you weak. As you say, it does not make any sense to a civilized person, but to them it seems to make sense. So it doesn't matter who you are, how much you've done for them, how liberal you are, whatever. You are white. And that is sufficient, because you stole the land from them, you stole the jobs from them, you are still oppressing them, and you need to disappear. Once again, I come back to the same thing. Cause and effect is not visible to these people, because they don't seem to realize that once the white skills disappear, the country disappears. They've laid white skilled people off all over South Africa. Look at the state of the power stations. Look at the state of the water supply. Look at the state of the hospitals. Look at the state of the roads. Look at the state of anything in South Africa, because those skilled, experienced white workers have been paid off, and unskilled, uneducated people have been put in their place. The country has fallen apart.
Now, just to give you personal examples of that. Um, I've just formed a company that distills seawater into drinkable water.
Mm.
And our country is going through one of the worst droughts in history. And water is desperately needed by everybody. Um, our, we've created a very simple um, apparatus that can distill water, seawater, to drinking water at a very low cost. Now, because we are white people who created this, it's going to be very difficult to market it because we don't have the support of the government.
Uh-huh.
And secondly, we're facing the dilemma of having to give 52% of this, our skills and our labor and our initiative, to somebody who's going to have no input whatsoever. So, now we have to decide, are we going to leave this and leave millions of people without potential to water simply because we're being discriminated against? That's an example of what we can contribute as white people to South Africa. We've got the solutions, but simply because we're white, we're not given the opportunity
Well,
to.
absolutely. I spoke earlier on about how the ANC has told the white farmers, well, they must just find a different way to farm.
Yeah.
But one of the miraculous things that keep on happening in South Africa, and I keep crying about it because it is total miracles, is how the whites have banded together and arranged feed for these starving cattle and arranged water drop-offs for these people who have no water. For me, it is absolutely miraculous. It's as if angels still walk on this earth.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to happen more and more as we get into more and more trouble because things aren't going to get better unless something drastic happens. Unless Zuma walks away immediately, this country is going to fail very soon.
Yeah, with Zuma or with Malema, it doesn't really matter. It's on a downhill slide to failure. But is it not great for you to see how people, ordinary, everyday people, are standing up and helping those worse off than them?
Yeah, it's awesome. I see it every day, and wherever we go in the community that we live, it's become a necessity because of the situation we're in. The human spirit that prevails when you're under duress. It's always amazing, and that's why I live and die in South Africa, because you won't experience this anywhere else.
No, our people have a historical way of banding together. And what touches my heart the most is that the people that have the least give the most.
Exactly. Um, Me and my wife always says that if we see a guy in a nice shiny car, that you can be for certain that guy won't give the beggar next to the road even 5 cents. However, when a car next to him stops or a person walking past who can't afford a car, he'll still give that person more money. It's just how the human mind works. The greedy people will always have money because they're not sharing. They're selfish. They keep it
Yeah.
to themselves.
Now, I believe that there are two initiatives. I know that Front National are involved in that Feed the Animals initiative.
Yeah.
And I know that Front National are involved in the racist thing. Now, I would really like to speak about that because we touched on it earlier. We touched on the penny sparrow thing. But, part of this was that some university students had a party, and the theme of that party was aliens. So these
Yeah.
two girls painted their faces purple. Purple. I mean, it's quite obvious in all the pictures that their faces are purple. And they covered
Yes.
their bodies in glitter, and they were space aliens. But from this came a firestorm, the likes of which I have seldom seen.
Yeah, it's insane. Once again, I'd like to correct you. Front National is trying to avoid being involved in racist incidents. The rest of the country has degraded to playing racist politics. Our involvement is to defend our people against unlawful attacks.
Yeah.
We are peace-loving people, and our first choice is to live in peace with our neighbors and with other people. However, we have taken the stance that we will defend our people and we will defend ourselves by all legal means necessary. So it's not that we seek to be involved in racist incidents, but when our people is attacked, we have no option but to defend them. Yes, these girls went to a party, which is tradition in our universities, and it has been since the universities started. They painted their faces purple, and in some way, in some twisted mind, it's been made out to be a racist attack. These girls were suspended from the varsity. However, that has been turned around, and they are taking legal action against the varsity.
Yes, because
And this happens all over the place. In fact, one of our newest members last week faced disciplinary action because he liked a post that was posted on Facebook, Off Front National. His employer, who hasn't bothered to read up about our policies, our stance, immediately assumed because we are white people and we decided no more and that we'll take a stand and that we will raise our voices, that we are racist. We tackled that situation. The employer did apologize and we accepted that and we left it there. These things happen around every corner, every day, in every street. That's very few of them make the media, like the girls with the painted faces, but it's an everyday occurrence.
Is that not a sad commentary on life in South Africa? Is it not sad that you have no idea where the next attack on you is coming from?
Well, when you walk out, it's very sad. When you walk out the door, there's a 90% chance that you will be involved in a racist incident. If you stand in the queue for the bus or at the shop, black people will push you out of the way. They will take your spot. And if you dare speak up, you are almost certain to be assaulted by a group of them for being racist. So that's everyday life. And it's very sad because we've decided to live in peace. And that decision of ours has been now taken, abused, and raped. And there's not much longer that we can stand for this. So that's why we've decided to form this new party. And that's the reason why I decided to become part of it.
Carlo, it's very scary to me that okay, if you look, just take Facebook as that social media. If you look at these blacks in South Africa at the universities wearing T-shirts that started out with fuck the whites, F the whites, and then turned into kill the whites. Now, they are being taken to the Human Rights Council, but it has already been put out there that it is their right for freedom of speech. They have a right to do that. So it is quite possible that nothing will come of that. And it's perfectly all right for them to wear those shirts in university, painted on the university's walls, and just keep on doing what they're doing. It's fine. But can you imagine the uproar if a group of white university students put that on their T-shirts as kill all blacks? The uproar worldwide would be hysterical.
I actually don't know what to say. It's insane that people are so one side, so biased in when it comes to these type of things. Like I say, we experience it every day in every situation that we find ourselves in. It's become part of your norm of in everyday life. And like I say, there's not uh, much regard to the law by the government, so it's not going to end soon. Um, that's why we're saying um, we don't want to be part of this chaos, this um, unlawful government, this not unlawful, this government that's got no regard for law whatsoever. We don't want to be part of this. We've got our own traditions, we've got our own viewpoints. We law-fearing people, and we just like to be left alone to care for our families.
Well,
Because we're not going to get any justice in South Africa, and it's not going to get any better.
no, you're not, because Dan Root, who we all know and respect, was in court the other day in Randburg, I believe, and he asked the judge to address him in his language, which is Afrikaans, which is one of the official languages of South Africa. And the
Yes.
judge issued a bench warrant right then and there for contempt of court. I was astounded. I could not believe what I was hearing. In the meantime, this week in South Africa, half of South Africa is on fire with protests. There's Krugersdorp, there's Sabi, there's Nelstroom, there's the universities. I don't know where else, but those are 4 that I could pick up in just 5 minutes looking through posts for this week. Those places are on fire. They have protests, they have riots, they have businesses being burnt, and no attention is being paid to that. We will pay attention to one man asking in court to be spoken to in his home language. The injustice of that is beyond my credibility.
Karen, I'm fortunate that we've got an information network. I'm aware of 12 protests going on in South Africa today. 12 towns that is totally shut down by the roads in and out being blocked. Tires burned, businesses that cannot operate. 12 towns today. But what made the news is not one of those 12 towns that's totally separated from the rest of the world, but a white person that arrested a black man who wanted to break into his house. He didn't act any different than any other reasonable person. He used the necessary force to subdue him and to cuff his hands. And that white person has made headlines today for being racist. Never mind the disastrous things that's happening in South Africa and other places.
No, and that man...
This man is defending his family, his home. He's unemployed, so the things that is in his house, he's worked for, he's paid for it with his blood, sweat, and tears. And he's probably going to lose it because he lost his job. However, he must still defend it because somebody believes he's got free access to that.
Absolutely. And Carlo, the problem with that is that that guy, who has the absolute right to protect what he owns, he is the one who is going to end up with a criminal record.
Exactly. Now, I'm asking you, Karen, what would any other reasonable person do if his land is taken away, if his work is taken away, if he can't support his family, he can't start a business, he's being accused of all the incompetence of the government, he's being robbed, his wife is being raped? What would any other reasonable person in the world do? I ask you that question.
Well, I have said many times, and Carlo, this is very close to my heart. For me, the torture and murder of white South Africans is horrific. The way they kill these people, the abuse they are subjected to before they actually die is horrific. But for me, the survivors, because we talk about so many whites killed, but we do not talk about so many whites attacked and survived. It is the survivors that are the absolute horror story of South Africa. Because a man who has been tied up and witnessed this being done to his family and lives, how does he face every new day?
Exactly. And, the consequences of that murder of one white farmer is far greater than just that man himself.
Yeah.
That farmer most probably employed 50 black people. He most probably fed a whole town with the produce he produced. He, apart from his family that was dependent on him, now there's 50 black families without an income. So they actually destroying themselves. It's insanity. It's beyond my understanding.
Totally, totally. And yet, the uneducated black masses, because I'm sorry to say this to you, but a 30% is not enough to pass a subject, never mind to pass a matric. So now we're going to bring that down, I believe. We're going to bring it down to 10% because, wow, it's racist to expect people to study to pass. So now we have this 30% pass rate. Great and good, but does that leave an educated person? No, it does not. So you have these black masses who are unemployed and unemployable due to the fact that they got 30% and were pushed through school. Now, those people, they do not see that killing a farmer is going to produce more lack of food and more unemployment. They don't see it. So they follow blindly after Malema, who is promising them that you vote for me and all of this will be yours. But they are not qualified to take a job. They are not qualified to run a farm. They are not qualified to maintain a lifestyle that is handed to them on a plate because we've now killed the white people. So you've already said there is no future for South Africa. But do these black people not see that their future is equally at stake?
Gordon, Zuma and Malema are both personally to be blamed for the destruction of South Africa. They're playing easy politics for their own selfish benefit. And the people who finds a home or listens to them simply listens to them because they are lazy and they want an easy way up. They don't want to start at the bottom. They don't want to work. They don't want to study. They don't want to pay for their studies. They want a free handout. And this is what this affirmative action and BE policies has created over the past 22 years. These youngsters that we see today are used to getting everything for free because that has been the norm in South Africa for the past 22 years. So if they don't get their way, they scream and shout, and it gets given to them for free. Yes. So they don't understand the economics of actually working for what you want or actually earning the points that you need to pass, because there's been a system that applies to the whites and a system that applies to the blacks in every aspect of South African life. For instance, with education, if you as a teacher dare to fail a black, you're immediately labeled as a racist, and most probably you'll be replaced.
Yeah.
So the blacks has grown up being used to being passed without putting in any effort. Then it comes time to pay for the school fees. You don't want to pay for your school fees, so you burn down your class. So you get away with that. Now, that's that same mindset that's going to varsity that doesn't understand that you actually have to study so that you can have the knowledge. That's the idea behind university. And that university can only give you that knowledge if you pay for it. That idea has been taken away from them because they've been receiving everything for free, and it's come home to bite us.
Yes, and at the same time,
Malema and Zuma is playing on this, and they are furthering this by because it's easy politics, and they promising these people that not only do you can come to varsity, get a degree for free, pass your degree without much studying, as long as you sit. You'll also get a house for free. You'll also get a farm for free. You'll also get a work for free. It's insane. How would any normal person believe this unless he's grown up under the system that the ANC government has created?
Absolutely, because for me, the white South African is an extremely hardworking. There are definitely bad apples in every barrel, but in general, the white South African is an extremely hardworking person who takes responsibility for himself, his family, his staff, and believes that hard work will give you a better life. Now, unfortunately, that belief of the white South African has been destroyed because it doesn't matter how hard they're willing to work. If you're not given the opportunity to work, then there is no hope. There is no hope whatsoever.
Exactly. And, we as Afrikaans people, we were killed in France, the Huguenots, and that's why we came to South Africa.
Yes.
We built up South Africa from nothing. The English came and they totally destroyed everything we built up. We've again built up South Africa, and we'll do it again. We're God-fearing, and we've got God blessing us all the time. And nothing can be done to us that will get us down. And this is the problem. You can't reconcile a capitalist and a communist mindset. You can't reconcile a witch doctor worshipping person with a Christian. You can't reconcile a hateful person with a peaceful person. It simply doesn't make sense. That's why we're asking to let our people go. Leave us alone. Let us just live our lives.
Yes, because the white South African has tried this forced integration thing. They've tried it for 21 years, and it is obvious to any sane person that it does not work. So, as you say, let our people go. Let them live themselves. Let them rule themselves. They don't want to rule you. They don't want to change you. They don't want to make you into something you don't want to be. They just want you to leave them alone.
Exactly, and we're not saying we anything better than anybody else. In fact, I believe I'm very stupid because I don't understand any of the thinking of the current South African government or people. So I'm saying just let me go and live my life in peace. I won't bother you. You don't bother me. It's quite a good deal, I think. In any case, we're not wanted in South Africa. We blamed for everything that's wrong. We're being killed. They want our land, so let us go. You don't want us, so let us go.
But
It's
they don't
simple
want
as
to
that.
let you go either. They don't want
Yeah.
to let you go.
Because the problem is they realize deep inside, they parasites. They live off our hard work and initiative and the money that we create. That's the bottom end. They can't let us go because then they'll have no income.
Absolutely. And with that, we're coming up to the end of the show. So if you would like to just give a website and a Facebook page where people can find out more about Front National and see what you stand for, could you do that?
Karen, it would be quite easy if they just type in my name, Carlo Viljoen, in Google. My Facebook page will be there, and that will link them to Front National and other things that we're busy with. So you can spell it Carlo, and my surname is Viljoen.
And I would encourage people to research for themselves, to have a look at Front National, to understand that this is not a racist, we want to return to apartheid, we want to oppress the blacks, we want to do all these terrible things. This is not what it is about. This is about the survival of a race of people who have withstood the most incredible onslaught against them through the past 400 years, since 1625. And they really, really deserve a home of their own where they can finally have some peace and forge ahead, recreate a first world country, and make a contribution to the world. It is not about racism or hatred.
Karen, that's what we're saying. We don't want to rule anybody. We don't hate anybody. We don't want to force our views or religion on anybody. We don't want to take anything from anybody. We simply want to praise our God and love our families. And that's basically what it is. We just want to be left alone to live our lives. I know I'm being very forward, Karen, but we've got an election coming up, local government elections now in August. The position is that we are being totally silenced by the local media. So we've got no word to run a campaign. In fact, we have no money, like you said, that most of us don't work, and we victims of affirmative action and DEE. We do need money to run a campaign. And for us to successfully claim self-determination at the United Nations, we have to have votes. We have to win at least one local government, and from there we can move on and we can prove to the United Nations there's a group of people, they voted for this principle. Then we've got an argument to make. But we can't campaign because we don't have money. We are being totally silenced by the local media. The only method we can use to campaign is through social media, which is also very limited.
Yeah.
And with the exchange rate today, if anybody outside of South Africa even so much as donates $10 to us, it means a lot of money to us. So we'll highly appreciate if people will consider donating to our election campaign that's coming up in August.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask for this, but here it is.
Of course you are. Of course you are. That is what I'm here. What this show is here for, is to find solutions for this white South Africans and assist where we can.
Yeah, it's essential for us to win at least one local government, which is quite possible, because that will be part of our campaign to actually go to the international court and win self-determination. We'd rather choose the legal path and than any other path. So we're asking for all the assistance that we can get. And like I say, none of us has any money to run this campaign, and we're not getting supported by the government. In fact, we are getting clamped down on all the media. So we'll appreciate any donations that we can get.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
Anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. A black knight always triumphs!
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.